is new. This idea of trying to wipe Jews off the face of the earth, this mass genocide of Jews, that's nothing new. This has been happening forever. And it's Satan's plan to try to wipe. Satan is behind this idea of trying to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. Satan was behind the killing of all the Israelite babies back in the book of Genesis, trying to wipe out the Jews. Killing all the Israelite babies back in Exodus. Satan was behind the pursuit. Remember when they were trying to flee Egypt and Pharaoh comes and he's chasing after them and they go through the Red Sea? Remember that whole thing? He's trying to wipe out all of the Jews and kill all of them. Satan was behind that. Satan was in the pursuit to kill David by Saul, right? To wipe out the line of David. Satan was in that. Satan was trying to do that. Or when the Arabs kill all of David's descendants except for one. Satan was in that. Remember when Jesus was born and Herod wants to kill all the babies that are about the age of Jesus, right? Satan was behind that, trying to wipe out the Savior. And if you go into even more recent times, the time of Hitler, when Hitler's trying to kill all the Jews, wipe them off the face of the earth, a mass genocide. Who's behind that? Satan is behind that. And today, we have groups of people like the Islamic State and other groups that are trying to wipe. You've got this little country of Israel, and they are just surrounded by thousands of miles of people that hate and despise them and wish they did not exist and want to wipe them off the face of the earth. And if you think this is new, this isn't new. It's actually very relevant even to what we're going to talk about this morning, because what we talk about this morning in chapter 3 of the book of Esther is a plot to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. Okay? It's a grand plot. So if you've got a Bible, I'm going to ask you to turn to it. I'm not going to put it on the screen today. Hopefully you've got Bibles or you've got your handheld devices. And we're in chapter 3, but to get us started, I want to go to the last part of chapter 2 because I don't want to miss this section. In chapter 2, verse 19, listen to what it says. It says, when the virgins were assembled a second time, Mordecai was sitting in the king's gate, but Esther had kept secret her family background and nationality because, as Mordecai had told her to do so, for she continued to follow Mordecai's instructions as she had done when he was bringing her up. So remember, Mordecai and Esther are living in disobedience because they're not in Jerusalem. They're living basically in Iran. Okay, they're living in Susa. It goes on, it says, during that time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officials who guarded the doorway, became angry and conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. So there's an assassination plot that is being plotted at the gate, and Mordecai catches wind of it. But Mordecai found out about the plot and told Queen Esther, who in turn reported it to the king, giving credit to Mordecai. And when the report was investigated and found to be true, the two officials were impaled on poles. That's pleasant. All this was recorded in the book of the annals in the presence of the king. So all you need to know about this is that Mordecai did the right thing. There was an assassination plot against King Xerxes. He finds out about it. He hears something, sees something, says something, right? He reports it. As a result, the king puts it in his annals that this had happened, but he doesn't get any reward. You kind of set it and forget it, okay? It's a Ron Popeil thing. You set this and forget it because that's the way the Bible deals with it, at least for a while. It just says, hey, this happened. Now let's forget about it and move on. So because that's the way the Bible deals with it, that's the way we're going to deal with it. Let's go to chapter 3. Here's what it says. After these events, King Xerxes honored Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than that of all the other nobles. All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honor to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him. But Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor. That's going to be trouble. That's going to be trouble, right? When Mordecai isn't willing to do this, why is he unwilling to kneel down and pay honor to this guy? Well, verse 3, then the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, why do you disobey the king's command? Right? King says you're supposed to kneel down, pay honor to this guy. Haman, how come you won't do it? Day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Therefore, they told Haman about it to see whether Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated. for he had told them that he was a Jew. So when they asked him, hey, how's come you won't kneel down? How's come you won't bow down to him? He says, well, I'm Jewish. I can't because I'm Jewish. That's against my religion. So he's picky about what parts of his religion he won't bow down to folk, but he will live he will live in Susa rather than be in Jerusalem building the temple, okay, or going back where he should have been. Then when Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor, he was enraged. Of course he was. Yet, having learned that who Mordecai's people were, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. Now, you say, what in the world is going on here? This guy gets so angry, that this Jew won't kneel down to him, that he's not going to just kill Mordecai, he's going to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. Does that at all seem like a little bit of overkill? Maybe like the guys, he's gone from being a little angry to having, anger disorder at this point, right? It's because you don't understand the context of what's happening here. Mordecai is a Jew, and Haman is an Agagite. Didn't you hear that at the beginning? Let's go back here. It says, verse 1 of chapter 3, after these events, King Xerxes honored Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than that of all the other nobles. Who are the Agagites? Does anybody know who the Agagites are? Does anybody know what an Amalekite is? Okay, we know that he is an Amalekite. So let me lay this out for you and explain a little bit of background, because it'll explain why they are in such horrible hatred for each other. Okay, so a long time ago there was a guy there was Jacob and Esau. You remember those two guys from the Bible? Esau, remember, sold his blessing to his brother for a bowl of soup. Okay, and that was a big deal, because in a sense what happened is Esau stopped being the chosen, the one that was going to basically be the Jewish, the next Jew, the one that would carry on the Jewish nation. He gave that up for a bowl of soup and gave it to his brother Jacob. Okay. As a result of that, now he could have continued to be a blessing like his brother. They were family. They could have both continued to be a blessing. But that's not what happened. What Esau did is Esau hated his brother. He hated Jacob. He hated the Jews. And he hated them so much so that it just continued down the generations. He had a grandson, Esau did, whose name was Amalek. Okay? And the Amalek's descendants are called the Amalekites. Okay? They're called the Amalekites. When the Jews are leaving Egypt, the first thing that happens, they're just getting out of Egypt. Remember, they crossed the Red Sea, they're out of Egypt, and now there's no water. They're going to die, and they're complaining, we don't got no water, what are we going to do? They haven't even got to Mount Sinai yet. And what happens? But the Amalekites come, they're dying of thirst, and the Amalekites, in their weakest moment as a nation, come out and try to destroy them and wipe them out. And there's this big battle, and God ends up saving the Jews. Okay? They don't even have water, and they're being attacked, and they still win that battle because God is with them. The Amalekites hate the Jews. The spirit of the Amalekite is destroy the Jews from the face of the earth. When we hear about the Palestinians now that are wanting to destroy, that is a spirit of Amalekite. Now, if you go back to the book of 1 Samuel chapter 15, you'll see that there is a time here when God actually tells Saul that he is supposed to wipe the Amalekites off the face of the earth. He's supposed to destroy them all. Okay? Listen to what it says in 1 Samuel 15. Samuel said to Saul, I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel. So listen now to the message from the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylay them as they came up from Egypt. Remember, I just told you that that's what they did. They came out and tried to beat them up and take their lunch money and kill them all. Now go, attack the Amalekites, and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death, listen to the specifics here, put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. So Saul summoned the men and mustered them at Telaim, 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 from Judah. Saul went to the city of Amalek and set an ambush in the ravine. Then he said to the Kenites, go away, leave the Amalekites, so that I do not destroy you along with them. So listen to what, so you see what happened? There are with the Amalekites another group of people called the Kenites. Okay? And what Saul does is he goes to the Kenites who are mingled in with them and says, listen, we are going to destroy these people off the face of the earth. And if you are with them, you're going to get destroyed with them. So you need to jet out of here and get out of here so that you don't get waylaid and wiped out along with the Amalekites. Which, think about that for a second. That means the Amalekites know what's coming, right? Right, absolutely. The Amalekites know it's coming. It's not like the Amalekites flee or the Amalekites repent or the Amalekites leave. The Amalekites know that the Jews are coming to try to destroy them. Then Saul attacked the Amalekites all the way from Havilah to Shur near the eastern border of Egypt. He took Agag. Does that sound familiar? Agagites? Remember, Haman is an Agagite. He took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive. And all his people he totally destroyed with the sword. But Saul and the army spared Agag and the best of the sheep and cattle, the fat calves and the lambs, everything that was good. These they were unwilling to destroy completely. But everything that was despised and weak they totally destroyed. So what just happened? Saul was commanded by God, go in and destroy them completely. And Saul changes his mind and says, well, I'm going to destroy everything except the things that I think are good. He doesn't obey God properly. And so who lives? Agag, the king. Agag survives because he doesn't kill him. Now there's a descendant of Agag that is named Haman, who is an Agagite. Do you realize that the Jews are nearly destroyed in the book of Esther because Saul does not obey God? He just doesn't obey God. He thinks he's smarter than God. He says, I want to keep these cattle. I'm going to spare the king. And he faces quite an issue. There's another issue. There's an elephant in the room. There's an elephant in the room, at least for me. And if you talk with people that aren't believers, one of the major issues that people have that aren't believers with the Bible is they say, what kind of a God would command the army of Israel to destroy everyone in a nation, including innocent children and infants, innocent animals, people that are innocent? Why would God do that? You talk about a God who says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever would believeth in him shall not perish but have eternal life. And yet here you're talking about the same God who's saying, go to the Amalekites and commit mass genocide. How can you say this is the same God? I want to give you a couple points. And they're at least the way I look at this. And the main point is this. First of all, they knew that they were coming, okay? The Amalekites knew that the Jews were coming. It wasn't like this was a total surprise. The Amalekites had continually been trying to destroy and wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. Okay? They didn't have to be this way. They could have been like the brother of Jacob should be. Okay? I'll just tell you that. They could have been a good brother. They could have been like the Kenites here who were spared, but no. But as I go deeper into it from a moral standpoint, and I think about this and I try to think of it from God's perspective, which is really hard, I want you to imagine for a second that it's 1920 something, okay? It's the 1920s, and you're in Germany, and you are in a time machine. You go in a time machine, you go back there, and you're at summer camp. And you meet a little boy at summer camp named Adolf Hitler. And you guys climb up this mountain, and you know everything that's going to happen in human history, and you're climbing this mountain at summer camp, and Adolf Hitler is standing at the edge of a mountain on a cliff that's 5,000 feet high, and you're right behind him, and there's nobody with you. And you have the ability to accidentally push him off this cliff, knowing that you will save millions and millions and millions of Jews. Hundreds of thousands of Jews. Would you do it? Would you do it? You wouldn't do it. The difference is that God, it's not murder for God. Because God gives life, God takes life. It belongs to God. See, God can't steal. God can't steal. That question comes up in the life of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, back in Germany, had the unfortunate displeasure of being a Christian in Germany, understanding that how do I save all of these Jews? And he was a part of an assassination plot against Adolf Hitler, and it ended up costing him his life. He was in a concentration camp for a long time, and he's got some really great writings. All that to say, let's get back into the book of Esther. And here's what we've got. It says, after these events, King Xerxes honored Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite. Perspective now. Now you understand what's going on. Elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than that of all the other nations. All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honor to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him. But Mordecai would not deal down or pay him honor. He would not honor an Agagite. He would not pay honor like that to any human, to any man. Then the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, why do you disobey the king's command? Day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Therefore they told Haman about it to see whether Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated. For he had told them that he was a Jew. This is his reason. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not deal down and pay him honor, he was enraged. Yet, having learned who Mordecai's people were, that these are the Jews, and he's an Agagite, he scorned the idea of killing old Mordecai. That's nothing for him. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. Now you've got some perspective. Now you understand what's going on. In the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month, the month of Nisan, the pur, that is, the lot was cast in the presence of Haman to select a day and month, and the lot fell on the 12th month, the month of Adar. What is this lot for? This is for when they're going to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. They cast lots for this. Do you know what lots are? Do you know how they do lots? So you see casting lots in the Bible sometimes. Imagine we're going to cast lots and we have to figure out when are we going to destroy the Jews? Because we believe in fate, we believe in chance, and so we've got a dice. It's a 12-sided dice for this particular lot. We have over here, we've got a big calendar, and on this calendar there are 12 months. All right, so I take the dice and I roll a 6. 6, that's going to be a June. Okay, so we mark June here real quick. We roll, come on, 6. I roll a 3. Oh, okay, so it's not going to be June. Okay, I roll a 12. And then what do? I roll another 12. Ooh, I got two 12s in a row. I roll another 12. I rolled 3 12s in a row. Fate is telling me that we're going to do it in December. Okay? That's how lots work. Okay? So they cast lots. Then Haman, son of King Xerxes, said to King Xerxes, there is a certain people dispersed among the people in all the province of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all the other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury. So the king took his signet ring from his finger, gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. Notice how they're emphasizing the enemy of the Jews. Keep the money. the king said to Haman, and do with the people as you please. Now, this is huge. Notice a couple things that happen here. First of all, Haman goes to the king. He doesn't even identify that these people are Jews. It doesn't say anywhere that he's upset with the Jews. It just says that there are a people. There are people out there that are not in line with you and they disobey you, right? He doesn't give specifics about that. He says that they are dispersed among the people in all the provinces of the kingdom. Well, that's not bad, is it? That's the way the Persians usually do things. That's called diversity. We live in Seattle. We love diversity. Get all these people from different things, different nations, and put them all together and let them hodgepodge together and put them all in the same schools, and diversity is good. And it was good for the Persians too. They were into that. He also says that they keep themselves separate. Well, he flat out lied to the king there because they don't keep themselves separate. They're intermingled, they're diverse. And then it says they don't keep the king's laws. That's not true either. The only law that they're not keeping here is that Mordecai, a specific Jew, won't bow down and kneel to an Agagite. That's the only thing. And so as a result, he says, hey, we need to wipe these people off the face. This is not just a vendetta, but this is also a way to get rich. Because what you may not understand is that in this particular culture, if someone is put to death for a crime, the person who made the accusation or that was offended by the crime, when that person goes to death, I get everything that belongs to them. It doesn't go to their next of kin. So I want you to think about this for a second. The crime is done against the government and against, well, the crime is being brought up here by Haman. Haman says that a crime is being committed by every Jew in the entire kingdom. And that includes Jerusalem. That includes all across. Every one of these Jews, a lot of them have land, a lot of them have livestock. They are all to be put to death, and when they are put to death, what's going to happen to all their stuff? It all goes back to Haman and to the treasury. You're like, wow, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding. And the king doesn't investigate? You're talking about the mass genocide of an entire nation of people, God's chosen people. He doesn't investigate who they are. He doesn't look to see if maybe he has someone in his household that's somehow related to these people. He doesn't even know that his own wife is among the people that is going to be destroyed. He doesn't know any of this. He just takes his signet ring and he says, here, yeah, whatever you think's best, here you go. What a horrible king. So the king took a signet ring from his finger, gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. Keep the money. Verse 12, then in the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script each province. I think this is kind of some legal writing here. And in the language of each people, all Haman's orders to the king's satraps, the governors of the various provinces, and the nobles of the various peoples. These were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring. Dispatches were sent by courier to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews. That's the order. Kill, destroy, annihilate all the Jews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month. Man, think about that for a second. Think about this. Think about, let's say the United States and ISIS, they get together and they declare that all Christians have caused these problems that they have in the world and that they are all to be destroyed on October 21st, 2017. They're all going to be murdered. And there's just a date set. And it's public knowledge. How do you escape that? What are you going to do? A decree has been laid out, and it's going to be vicious. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be bloodshed. Man, child, woman, doesn't matter. On a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods, right? Your house is going to be taken, and it's going to belong to the government. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality so they would be ready for that day. Right? Because this is going to be an inconvenience for some people. Right? Traffic could be bad that day while we're wiping an entire nation of people off the face of the earth. The couriers went out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the citadel of Susa. The king and Haman sat down. What did they do? They sat down to drink. But the city of Susa was, it says, bewildered. The city of Susa is bewildered because nothing has ever happened like this. This is a really scary decree. If they could do this for the Jews, what are they going to do this for another nationality next time? People are freaking out. They've never seen anything like this. So here's the question that they're asking, and these are the questions that I'd be asking. And they're the questions that I think this passage leads us to think of as Christians. The first one is, where is God at? If I was there during this time, I'd say, God, where are you? God, you saved us from Egypt. You saved us. When the Persians, they allowed us to go back to our homeland, and yeah, we're not there, but you've allowed us to build our temple, and now you're going to destroy us? You're going to allow us to be destroyed? God, where are you? That would be the first question I would be asking. The second question is, God, are you going to fight for the Jews? Are you going to fight for us? And I'd be down on my knees every day saying, God, we can't fight this fight on our own. We need you to fight for us. Will you fight for us? God, are you going to be faithful to your covenant, to your people? God, you made an agreement with us. And the agreement was that you would be our God and we would be your people. Are you going to be faithful to the command, to the covenant that you made, or is the fact that we have not fulfilled the covenant on our own, does that, us unfulfilling that covenant, not fulfilling that covenant, does that wipe the covenant out? Is the covenant still in place, God? When there's a death sentence decree by the Persian government against you, where do you find hope? When things look hopeless in my life and in your life, where do we find hope? There's a specific day that is set out ahead of you, and it is doomsday. If there was ever a doomsday in the Bible, this is it. This is it. On this specific day, all the Jews will be wiped off the face of the earth. And they've got to ask the question, God, where do they find hope? And they hope, the Jewish hope, has to be found in the same place that your hope and my hope is found. It is in the promises of God. It's not in our ability. It's not in our obedience to God. God's promises are not dependent upon our obedience. God's promises are God's promises. God's promises are based on God's character and God's goodness. So when I need hope, when things look hopeless, I have to look outside of myself. Have you noticed that when you find yourself hopeless, it's because you're looking at yourself. It's because you're looking at your own ability. It's because you're looking at at the circumstances around you. You will never find hope looking at your own circumstances. You'll never find hope looking at yourself. You'll never find hope that way. You will always just see despair. You will always see doomsday. You will see the reality around you. Hope comes when we look outside of ourselves and we look at God and we begin to focus intently on God and say, God, what are your promises? I'm going to hold on not to anything else, but my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. So what does God promise you? What has God promised you? God has given us hope. In the midst of doomsday, God has given us hope. In the midst of struggle, God has given us hope. In the midst of maybe losing a job, God gives us hope. In the midst of mental illness,